Hey, Tim.
Hey there, how are you?
Good. Good.
You can hear both of you on this side as well.
Excellent.
Awesome.
I still have.
Tim and I saw that you're on. Good job,
Yep.
everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for reminding me to send you the link.
Absolutely.
We'll get started in a little bit. No, we won't. Oh. Tim, can you turn your video on? Because they were, I thought they were both. Oh.
Locked. They were there. I know, I just about there. Just about.
I can see Tim if I switch to gallery mode.
Yeah, we're trying to get that same thing over here. We only see you right now. Hogging up all the screen. And it's a smaller issue. It's not a big issue. I think if he talks, it'll scroll back to him. Do it right. 1 cup of gas is the same. It's like 12 sticks of dynamite. You get it to evaporate at the same time instead of just catching on the vapors and then the liquid dissipates. Boom, boom. It's almost like a deflagration, like a black powder thing that goes boom, boom. What a really fun show. Take a bag of all-purpose baking flour. Put that on top of the rice, so the flour catches on fire too. It's like a giant fucker. Wow, yeah. And they've had mill fires like that. Yeah, powdered creamer is the same. Yes, it's sort of powdered creamer on top of the lighter. All this stuff. I thought it was kind of, you know why I'm glad they weren't cell phone when I was a kid? Yeah. Yes. Well, Tim, did you brush your hair with that nice shirt you put on as well?
And it was cold. Yes.
Oh, okay. That's what I would say too. Not that you got fancied up for us.
Wouldn't dream of it.
We just can't. Okay.
Well, yeah, it was such a warm, nice day, and then all of a sudden.
Oh.
It was not very nice coming back from Brazil.
What if?
No, it looks.
Oh, what if? Can
windy.
you go back where you were?
From, yeah. Hayward to Middle
I haven't hit-
Island was a little, choppy.
So I think that just,
We are a minute behind here, guys, but we'll see if we can get the screens figured out.
Your apartment thing. I was gonna say, I'll be it. Oh, I was more just. No, I really don't mind.
no, I'm right there with you.
It's okay.
And I would say.
Well, this-
There's windows.
I will, write enough down to then to see if we can get that figured out
Okay.
before next time.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry.
We're just gonna have to.
Okay, that'll work. Hopefully it'll switch back and forth as
Yeah.
people talk, but no, sounds good. Appreciate the help on that one. All right, well, we'll go ahead and call to order the special meeting of Wednesday, June 12th, 2024. Please join me for a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Assembly of the City and Borough of Sitka would like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional first people of Sitka. With gratitude, we proceed on Tlingit Ani. Sarah, roll call, please.
Mayor Eisenbeiß,
Present?
Mr. Mosher,
Here.
Mr. Pike,
Here.
Mr. Yestad,
Here.
Ms. Carlson,
Here.
Mr. Celine,
Here.
and Mr. Christensen is absent this evening.
Great, thank you. That'll bring us to persons to be heard. This is public participation for any item off of tonight's agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes for any individual. Seeing none, we will move into our first order of business, our first and only order of business tonight. Discussion, direction, decision on interim legal services. So as the Assembly is aware, our attorney Brian Hansen has put in his retirement notice effective June 30th.
Up to this point, we have been unable to find a replacement attorney, even though our recruiting efforts have been far and wide. So we're gathered here tonight to kind of talk about the Assembly's wish in going forward in maintaining some sort of legal services. By that, essentially, we mean contracting out, and if the Assembly has any concerns with that, or if they have any thoughts on the process as well. So it's a free flow discussion tonight. I do have a little bit of information on JDO and Michael Gotti if the Assembly is interested. I'm sure John has a little bit more because he's been working on our behalf in order to help that process along. Mindy is in the room as well, the legal assistant. So if we have questions and thoughts for her, we're able to provide that as well for those online who might not be able to see her. So if anyone would like to get the meeting started, or if Kevin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just, I feel like this meeting is not necessarily going to be long at all. Like it'll be really quick. I believe right now, what we need is clarity for the Assembly, the public, staff on the path forward, because as you said, Mr. Hansen's retirement is on June 30th and we don't have anyone. And there are many pressing legal issues facing this town. So in my mind, what I would like to do, I'm just going for it because just to get the conversation started, is I would like to agree that we're going to continue to have, I believe we already have some sort of agreement with JDO, but I want it more clear for the Assembly that we have and engage with JDO, Mr. Michael Gotti of JDO to give us temporary legal services until a new attorney can be hired. As far as contact point, because I'm concerned about John and Sarah being the ones who kind of just everything kind of comes to them just by nature of them being there. I'm concerned about them being overwhelmed or just having too much to do as far as, it's like, that's a huge job. So in my mind, we would make Mindy Lawrence, the legal assistant, the contact point for the Assembly, the staff and whoever. Obviously, people with staff within the city would need to go through their supervisors and that could be worked out. John could work that out. But for any items that the Assembly members need assistance with, I think we should go through Mindy and basically she would just do a pass through, or any issues that are pressing, just of a wide variety. I think we need to have Mindy as the contact point. Obviously, John and Sarah would be in communication with her because there's just things that are going to come up, informational things. And then, yeah, I think that's it. And then finally, I'd like to find out the status of our, from HR. Well, they're not here, but John could inform us of the status of the search for long-time legal counsel, because obviously this is not a permanent thing. This would be until we can find someone.
Mr. Mayor,
Please.
I have a couple of questions. I think probably for John as much as anything. I'm not disagreeing with anything that Kevin has indicated here, with the exception of, I think there are, I do have questions about the sequencing of things and whether or not we want to put that kind of responsibility on someone other than the administrative staff to make sure that they, you know, for example, let's say lawsuits as they come forward and move along. How's that contact going to take place? Are we handing that off completely to a contract attorney? Is that, so I guess I understand, do I understand correctly that John has some information about what this contract might look like and how that would go? And then the day-to-day stuff that comes up is also of a concern of mine too. You know, this could swamp that office pretty easily, since there are a lot of just questions that different department heads may have about things that don't require a full-time, you know, we don't, a full referral to a lawyer. So I guess I have some questions about that.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. It was yesterday, right, Sarah, that we met with JDO.
Mindy was in on the meeting, and what we discussed with them was kind of three buckets that I see legal work going into. One of them is litigation. Another one is legislation, code, ordinance, resolution sort of work. And then the third is the day-to-day. The day-to-day can be the kind of the overwhelming stuff. You know, we're dealing with lease compliance, we're dealing with collections, insurance claims, contract reviews, procurements, because in our code, you know, procurements over certain values require legal review on it. We send most contracts through legal review anyway, but some of those I've, given the circumstances, I review myself, but I'm probably not the the best version of an attorney to provide that review. But I think I have enough confidence in what a procurement contract looks like that could absorb some of that risk a little bit. JDO has committed to being able to provide those services at any level we need. They've worked with us for quite a while. We have an engagement contract in place. We have funding in place, and that can happen. We tried to work out, and I think we have really worked out a process for how these things get to JDO. We sat down with kind of a punch list of legal duties right now and just went item by item. But there still is going to have to be a little bit of a judgment call on my part, or if you're comfortable with me doing that, or some of these things might have to come back to the assembly, because we might have an example would be like a vehicle claim or something. Like it's only a couple $100, but we have to work out how to settle that claim. If the claim is a couple $100 and the law firm's cost is, you know, $280 an hour, I don't know what it is, we're spending more money to go after that small claim. And also, we learned yesterday there's a lot of these things that I don't really have the authority to waive. That's another thing in code for debts that are owed to the municipality. I have a very small, I don't remember what the code says exactly, but I think it's like $100 is all I can forgive. Otherwise, we have to go to the assembly for that stuff. So those are the things that those small things take up most of the time. But I'm not sure if I'm answering your question completely, Tim, but JDO is able to do that. They've confirmed that, and I think our process that we've developed is workable.
So, yeah, just for me, my point of view, because you kind of said that in response to me, I am okay with that. My just concern is that you get overwhelmed and then you're put in a position where you are taking on risk because you're making decisions on legal items. But your example is completely correct. We want to pay legal services for something that, or it costs more than if we just taken care of it. It's not just the high, there are paralegals. Paralegals can do usually leases and things like that. They're honestly the ones that do a lot of legwork anyways, but I'm okay with that, but we would have to come up with a system, like you said, where maybe we tack on an agenda item on a regular meeting if there's some issues that you need direction on. But I have confidence you can know what's going on and you can pass along some of those day-to-days, but I'm just concerned about you've got a lot on your plate and there's some staffing issues and that leads to more stuff that you have to do too. But if the assembly's okay with it, I'm okay with that too. But I just believe that we need to be very clear and get this, an agreement with the assembly to engage in this way and have clarity on how things are going to be handled. That's all I got.
If I can add one more piece, I think something I'll have to work internally to nail down this process is I have some nervousness that staff will reach out to outside attorneys like we always have with Brian being in his office. So I'm going to need to communicate that over and over and over again, you know, contact me, contact Mindy as the central point, so we can decide which of these buckets the work that they need goes into, and then decide if that's an appropriate level to send to outside counsel, because, you know, simple questions might be able to be answered in-house rather than going out to a law firm for some of these things. So we'll have to work through that process.
Couple of
Mr.
things. Oh, Tim, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. Well, I appreciate that, but I do share completely Kevin's concern about dropping the responsibilities on John and Sarah and even Mindy in this way. So I would like to hear and we don't need it tonight necessarily, but I'd like to hear a long-term plan for how we're going to find that position. I mean, we could be in this situation for some time if we don't find an attorney. And as a consequence, I think, you know, ramping up the responsibilities on the administrator and the legal assistant paralegal is, I mean, this is beyond what we would ordinarily expect. That's why we hire that position generally. So I'm curious if we can find a different way to do it. Do we need to hire a different position, a temporary position of some sort that will take over that load so that we're not jamming up the administrator and the clerk and the paralegal with this too. So I guess that's my concern. I mean, going forward from today, contract services sound like where we're at, but I'm not sure that what John is describing is a long-term solution to how we're going to do this if this were to go on for 6 months, say.
Yeah, I think I share a lot of that, Tim. I think this is not going to be short term. I think your idea of potentially bringing in extra help could be an option. And that was actually one of my questions, John. So as of July 1st, the municipality will be without an attorney. Can we roll that salary over into contract services? Do we have a mechanism for that? We'll have to bring back a supplemental or something, but we can allocate those funds back into contract services, correct?
We do have a sufficient balance for the remainder of this year in contract services, and we actually discussed this morning about a process to roll the remaining balance in the contract services from this fiscal year to the next fiscal years to bump up that availability there. But personnel costs are budgeted for personnel costs, so we'd have to do some more evaluation on it could be done with a supplemental appropriation, but then again, you still have to have that funding available there for if we do hire somebody.
Yeah, so at the end of the year and the wrap up and the infrastructure sinking fund is where it would all correct itself out.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
understood. And then I know you have a backlog of issues. The municipality has a backlog of issues that we would like to get dealt with. I would ask that you prioritize those as we go forward. I know some of them are urgent, and some of them we've been sitting on long enough now that maybe they're less urgent at this point. So understanding that we have a limited budget and we may need the budget later, if you could prioritize those so we don't hit JDO with our massive complete backlog all at once, that would be my preference there. Not saying any of those aren't less important than others, but you know, I think a couple a week or whatever we need to do to get the ball rolling, and then filtering those down as we go forward here. Please.
So, yeah, I agree with that. The only thing is like I gotta trust John to do, like, there's some things you just have to be dealt with immediately, those kind of things. But if there's, depending on how much there is, maybe you could give you discretionary authority to do that right immediately, which you kind of already are by necessity, but, maybe if there's, like a whole bunch, I don't know how many, but, bring it to the assembly and get input and stuff. Obviously, like lawsuits, there's no choice. You have to deal with it. But that's just a thought. But yeah.
We've also ramped up our recruiting efforts. We've been using a recruiting firm for the electric utility director and the HR director position. We've been getting a good amount of applicants through there at a fairly low cost. I think we pay a flat fee. I want to say it's like $6,000 per recruitment. And that's good for a year. It's not like a typical recruiting firm where they get a portion of the first year's salary. We're happy with this arrangement, but that contract we established, we had some room on it and added the attorney position to it. And that hit the streets, I think, yesterday. So hopefully we get some more interest there. So the advertisement has gone a lot further now. And I can contact that company because they have people on interim lists as well. So I can see if they have any interims that would be interested. It gets a little tricky because they have to be Alaska Bar certified. So they may have somebody. I can check with them.
Yeah, maybe there's a retired Alaskan up in Anchorage or Fairbanks or somewhere that might be interested in stopping down here for a little while.
Perhaps, and that would help on the day-to-day services. But Michael Gotti knows the municipality better than most, and I would assume an interim is going to come at a very similar cost. So I don't know if we're gaining much besides day-to-day services, honestly.
I see that. Yeah, that makes sense. I do know that Mr. Gotti has worked on and off for the city for probably a couple decades, and he also has many resources at his firm where they can farm out some of the things that we send them to different attorneys who have specializations. So that can also save time too.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, please.
Well, I have an additional concern. I don't want to ice legal services throughout the city either with, people feeling like the people, our employees don't feel like they have the opportunity to ask the questions they need to ask too. So, this is why we hire an attorney. The day-to-day is clearly the issue that I see being the biggest one at this point in time. I think the rest of the other two pools of work, I think, are fairly straightforward, but comparatively. So I am still concerned about the day-to-day and about making sure we don't discourage people from asking the questions that need to be asked. I mean, otherwise we are going to get ourselves in trouble.
Tim, do you mean like staff specifically?
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what the assembly desires that format to be, whether, I was thinking they'd go through their supervisor, but, kind of do John, okay? That sounds fine.
Chris hasn't said anything. He can take it on.
I'm on it.
It'll all come through you.
Yep.
Anything to add to the conversation that hasn't been said?
No, not really. I mean, kind of what I see going forward here is, seems like the best we can do at the moment. I guess I do have one question, and hard to answer at the moment, I think, but I guess, how do you see this affecting the budget if this does go 6 months or something like this? Do you think that this is going to be more expensive having to go outside?
I don't know. It's a tough question to answer because I guess it depends on how many legal issues we're having. We can go years with not a lot of them, and then some years we get a ton of them. It's just going to take keen budget management on our part to keep an eye on what's available and if we start bumping up against that limit. But if this does go on for 6 months or longer, there is a very high possibility that we'll come back to the assembly for some more funding to cover that.
Yeah, was kind of my only real question, and yeah, just kind of untested waters, so it'll be interesting to see how this all works out.
Scott? JJ, anything?
Yeah, a question for John, about how much is left in the fiscal year budget that we're currently in for contract services that can roll over?
I apologize. I didn't come here with that number. I don't have it available. I'm sorry.
JJ,
Okay.
the number I have in front of me is about 43,000, and then
Okay.
we have about 100,000 next year
Fair. Yeah.
budgeted already.
Mhm. Okay. And then a special appropriation. Okay, yeah. John, what has been, or has there been any interest in recruiting since we went through our interviews to date? Any at all?
We haven't seen any other applications come in through the method we were using initially. I'm hoping with the recruiting firm, we start to see some more, and that's only 24 hours old right now.
Mhm. And to comment on the idea of litigation, legislation, and day-to-day, how many cases are we in litigation with right now? Like less than 5, 5 to 10, over 10,
Getting 4.
we're in 4, okay. Mhm. Just thinking about that and the workload and balancing it all, I think, between John, Sarah, and Mindy, probably quarterback that dynamic, just understanding who does what, and communication can be half of someone's job when there's complex things like this. Yeah, that's going to be hard to organize and execute. I'm glad we're having this conversation. It's just showing me that perhaps there's a bigger move to be made, and hiring a second legal assistant or paralegal to do some of that coordination, I'd be open to that discussion.
So, I'll throw my 2 cents in. I would prefer not to, because we're already looking for a lawyer. And with the difficulty people are having today, not just in the city, but nationwide, maybe worldwide, trying to find a person, like, we can talk about it, come up with a plan, but then trying to find someone to do that and then get them up to speed, where I think the method we kind of talked about, and this is my opinion, will work as long as there's, I wouldn't say frequent, but periodic communication with the assembly on how things are going, what's going on. But if you guys were open to that, want to make a motion or something, I don't know, can people make motions tonight?
Within the basis of interim legal services.
Okay. Yeah, that's just my opinion on that. Personally, I feel like it'll be more work than it'll be worth. I mean, if I thought we could get someone right away who could get up to speed really quick, help fill in for a bit, I think that would be a good idea, but I'm just don't think in our current situation that would work.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, please.
Well, I mean, then maybe we need to hire an assistant for John. So, I think, if we're going to keep shoving responsibilities in that direction, then, I think we need to think about it in those terms too. So.
Yeah, I kind of see this right now as, our HR department. It doesn't have an HR director, but it has a lot of help that would have been under an HR director, and it seems to be getting by. I know that we're in the hunt for an HR director. I know that Mindy's been sucked into HR as well, so we appreciate your help over there. So it potentially, I think there's potential benefit to exploring the idea. I'm not ready to vote on anything, but additional help in troubled times, I think, can ease a lot of minds. We hear right now about the intensity of the work, the frequency of the work, and the burnout of the work. And this isn't going to alleviate any of those. So I want to be conscious of that as we move forward as well.
Mayor, if I could just
Please.
for what it's worth, I had a conversation with Mike yesterday and then today again. And if it helps ease the level of concern, he felt, I asked him, well, can you send someone here? He felt it was better, he as the point person, and then they have numerous people in JDO that can assist with that. And he felt that there was a sufficient number of people to help. He felt that would be more efficient. And going through the task list, he said today that he feels quite confident that it's not going to take a lot of time to get up to speed with that list and get things marked off. So I don't know if that helps for you all to know that, but that was that conversation.
No, that definitely helps. You're one of the 3 people we've been talking about tonight, and we haven't asked you your opinion yet. So I apologize for
Nope,
that,
no.
because we're asking for your help, but not letting you put any input into this discussion. So no.
Well, I'm
please do.
happy to help where I can. And I think right now, I'd like to give it a little bit of time and, see if we can get into a groove.
Mhm.
And then maybe we regroup in a few weeks or a month, just to see how things go and give JDO a chance to start going through the list.
And that's kind of what I was just feeling too, is John coming back to the assembly in a month with, here's how it's going, here's what's worked well, here's what hasn't worked well, so that we have an idea. Because I think we're all on the same page of the next page and the next steps in this chapter. Just the implementation and the successes and failures of in the future.
Yeah, I agree with that. Give it a little time. John, we can revisit this in a month and we'll have a little more information by then too on how things are going. Because I do believe there could be a need for extra support for, say, John, we've talked about that enough, but then if we hire an HR director or hire someone, that it might not be needed. So a little more time, I think. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
I think that's a good plan, and then see which bucket fills up first. And if it's the day-to-day, then like Tim's talking about, somebody to help on the day-to-day, and you get a better grip. I just keep thinking about when the lawyers bill out and they go 15 minutes tried to call, for a quarter hour for tried to call you, and anyway.
I understand that concern. If I didn't know Michael Gotti and didn't have a relationship with him, I think that would be more troublesome. But we do have a long-term relationship that has worked well in the past. So I don't think he's fleecing us.
No, and we talked about that too. And they want to help. And, he said he's willing to help as much or as little as we want. So.
Can he help with his rate? That's the much help that I want. No, we're appreciative of Mr. Gotti and JDO being able to step up. I'm sure that they're busy as well. So we appreciate them understanding the position that we're in and offering the full service, the full complement of people to the municipality's needs. So we are thankful for that. Please, JJ.
Would Michael Gotti or anyone at that firm be available to attend our assembly meetings in the evenings?
JJ, I actually did speak with Mike about that. I told him I might be overstepping at the moment, but that I knew that we may have a need for that at our meetings, and he was amenable to that. He asked if Brian had been attending by Zoom. I said yes, and so it didn't appear that would be an issue.
Okay, thank you.
I guess if that is something that we want, a just consensus of the assembly, I could make sure that I can get that lined up if that's the will of the assembly to have him participate at the next meeting and future.
It'd be nice to have them present for a meeting or two, just to, have conversation and then, as an assembly, and that we don't have to do it all the time, but I wouldn't mind one or two at least.
Yeah, I could definitely see like, well, this next agenda, we're talking about the amicus. So that might be handy having someone on hand, there's probably assembly meetings where, yeah, there's not gonna be any real legal need, but,
I guess we could do case by case. I don't. If
That
you
was
have a
my thought as
preference.
well, and then I'll let JJ go, but I was gonna ask the assembly for some grace in when we review the agenda, determining are there potential legal issues or not? And then if not, reserving that for later where we could always call back. But JJ, please.
Mhm. I think the last 10 minutes have been really helpful to clarify this and see some, potential tracks in the future, but what our main branch is now. And it's still kind of fooling around that day to day. So would there be perhaps like office hours or some simple times for those kind of questions for any staff to ask, and then kind of cluster things? Just any thoughts for the rest of the group on structuring it that way?
I guess my only hesitation on that would be if we say every Tuesday at 2:00, Mike Gotti, can you please be available? And then there's no need for it. Then we're paying. I think it's almost on a as needed and when he's available type basis instead of obligation. But that's one thought.
If I may, Mr. Mayor?
Please.
Yeah, I think, I think what I've heard in the last 10 minutes also very informative. I think let's give it a month. Let's see how it runs, and let's hear a solid report from everybody, including Michael Gotti, and as to how this is going and what we do, how we need to adapt it or adjust it. So, because yeah, I mean, there's a lot of rabbit holes and a lot of potential traps I can go down and see ahead that could happen, but the people in place may very well avoid all those. So let's see how. I'd like to just see it play out for a month and see where we end up.
Please.
I'm trying to crack a joke, but I could see an inverse Doc Ween's popcorn machine working for persons to be heard with, cost and money to take up your full 3 minutes with the lawyer listening versus maybe trimming it down a little bit so the popcorn machine isn't so inflated.
Yeah, I understand, having, what you're saying is just having the attorney online during the meat of the meeting as opposed to, mayor reports and such.
Just that we're doing the best we can, and with letting that be known for any kind of staging or anything like that.
Yeah, I think if anything major happens while the attorney wasn't online, it's obviously recorded, public record, and we can refer back to that, if need be, for whatever turmoil might exist that would need, some assistance with. Any further thoughts from the assembly? I think we kind of hit a wrap up point there. I think we're pretty solid. John, you have what you need? Ish?
I do.
Okay. Mindy, you have what you need, ish? Sure is not. What do you need? How can we help you?
Yeah.
Yeah, please. Please. on the very bottom. Maybe they didn't put batteries in that one.
I'm sorry. So I'm against hiring another paralegal because I don't have enough to do as it is as a paralegal, which is why I'm helping out HR. So I think that the plan to do, see what happens in the next month is a good one with staff as it is. And today I already went through the list, did about 6 of the tasks on it with Michael Gotti. Already got those out the door. So I think we're well on our way to getting things accomplished. And I think with John and Sarah and I working together, I think we came up with a pretty good plan yesterday of how to manage things. And I think maybe having me be more the point person or working in conjunction with John to do that will be beneficial and take a load off of him, because that's kind of what I've been doing with Brian the last several months anyway. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, that's great to know that you have capacity. That relieves a lot of my concern. So yeah, that's awesome to know that capacity is there. I appreciate that. And Sarah, do you have what you need from this?
I sure do. Yep.
Great. Well, with nothing else from the assembly, we would move on to persons to be heard. This is public participation for any item on or off tonight's agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes for any individual. Seeing none, that'll bring us to adjournment.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody, for your participation tonight on somewhat short notice. I think it was very productive and needed.
Thank you.